carer. I am also a carer registered with the HSE. With the friars, I've nursed them and laid them out 40 years. I can identify what it was like to be looking after the Padre. They said Padre as a friar, he was an ordinary friar. He had a great sense of humour. And he was pleasant, very pleasant, and very, very humble. I said, as a young man, he was a country boy, like myself. I'm from the mountains and hills of Tipperary. Padre was from the hills of Pietrelcina. I think they had 30 acres, and they had some sheep. But his father immigrated to America. It was very sad for him. Padre, as a child, suffered ill health. He was always a delicate child from the age of 9. He never got into arguments or disputes. Never. He would avoid all them. I am something like that. I never got into arguments with anybody or disputes all my life growing up as a child. When he joined the friars then and got ordained, he just made ordination, they said. And then he was sent to different places, for his health was a problem for him. But he went around to parishes, giving a day of talk or a retreat. But I asked, are there any records of sermons that he gave? But there's no records, as far as my memory tells me. I don't know if you've ever record of his preaching. I've never come across this. Now, he may have torn them up when he was doing parishes. But Padre then, the ordinary friar in the friary in San Giovanni, and they brought him up there for his health. The air was good. He was away from the village. When I was there, it was a little village. The friary was further out. There was no basilica, anything like that. It was just as it was. And when Father Pio had the experience that said, when he was praying in the choir, that I think 2 pews, if I remember rightly. There's 1, 2, I think, because there was only 4 friars there. And the crucifix was up here on the right. I was on the right for you. If you're kneeling down in the pews, I'm kneeling down praying, I look up there, there's a crucifix. So he was there, paying the visit, saying the prayers. And then they said he went into the ecstasy, or extraordinary. And when he came to and woke up, he saw the hands. So what did he do? He got up and he went back to the room. And the Father Guardian then told me that when they went to visit the choir to say prayers before they went to bed, he saw the blood on the ground. And he followed it along the corridor to the room of Padre. And he went in and he said, Padre, what happened? So Padre showed him the hands, the wounds. Then they said, the superior called the doctor. And the doctor couldn't figure it out. He called the surgeon, the top doctor. So it went from 1, 2, 3, up and on. He went from the roof then. Then he went out into the public. And then Padre's crucifixion really became external. Because he was a very shy person. Country boy. Very shy. So he wanted to hide them, you see, cover them with the glove. He wanted to cover the wounds so nobody would see them. The only time he didn't was when he was saying Mass. Padre, with the friars, was always the fraternity. The gifts that God gave him and the mission he called him to give was the salvation of souls. That's the pinnacle of the priestly state, the salvation of souls. And he saved billions. The gifts that God gave him, bilocation, reading the state of souls, that they're not easy. People that get gifts often find they can't handle them. Singers, painters, you name it, can be famous, but sometimes they go off their way, they can't handle it. Padre was constantly on his knees all the time, asking God for help and direction. When the news then got out and he became the centre, it became very big. But Padre retreated back. And the whole scene around Padre then became very, very hectic and very tough going for poor Padre. When he covered the hands, the gloves, they were changed about once a week. And of course the friars know then this is a saint. This is the makings of a saint. So they kept the gloves, they kept the flesh from the wound, as he told me, they kept loads of the flesh that was bleeding on the Friday. Padre, there's many words said about him, but I wanted to know the ordinary run with Padre. He never went out anywhere. He couldn't go anywhere. The only person that was there was Albrecht Frederick, I think his name is. He used to drive in the car up to the hospital to see the development of the hospital. Padre's two main pillars in his life, they said to him, was that the Mass and the door of mercy. The door of mercy, the confession. And as he told me, Padre used to thank him for looking after him in his old age. He used to thank him many times. And for his patience. He had an intercom into the room. Now, in my conversation for with Alessio as a carer, he told me the experience that he had with the intercom. When I was in Dublin, I had Father Paul Tapley and I had a camera and an intercom to keep an eye, because if he fell, it hit his head. That was the danger. So he said one night, about 1 o'clock, he said, the shouting, he had the calling, and he woke up and he went in and he saw Padre. And he said, what happened to you? He said, get me up. He said, what happened? He said, Satan beat me up. What? He said, Satan beat me up. He battled me up. So he said he had to spend 3 weeks in bed. That's the first time that he began to realize the work of the demons. They began to hound him when he got the stigmata every night. The one he told me about, the bishop that came looking to meet him, and he said, can I stay the night? And the superior said, look, he said, I wouldn't stay the night if I were you. I'll stay the night. I want to see this trial of the stigmata. So 1 o'clock in the morning, Hales visited the Friday. He went down to the superior. He opened the door. Yes, Your Grace. Is there a taxi out of here? No. Is there a bus out of here? No. He said, not. But he said, I'll put you down in the parlour and 2 friars will stay with you at the door. That will tell you. That with Padre, so the demons began to really every day in, day out, 50 years, conflict. 50 years, the conflict. It's conflict from the bishops, from Rome, the one that the Pope sent down. He said, go down and interview them. He said, interview the people, interview the friars, each one, and then interview Padre. And he went down and he interviewed them all. That was the process. And he came back and he said, that man is for real. He lifted everything. So Padre was back waving the handkerchief at the window. You often see the window where he's waving. Now, the Mass, the hands of Padre Pio was always at the Mass, are always on the cross. He blesses with the wounds of Christ all the faithful, healing, mercy and forgiveness. Thousands of people know by his sign the hand, the blessing. He always had the hand up with the blessing. You could have seen it here. And that hand was always blessing the people. And Padre said, bring God to all those who are sick. Bring God to all those who are sick. He said, I tremble when I go up the altar. He's talking to the friars now. He said, you know, this is fraternity, you know, within, like family talking within the family, you know. He said, I trembled when I go up the steps of the altar. Not for what I was to suffer, but for what I was about to offer. Interesting. I'd never noticed that. It's interesting. Padre had the friar, the temper of the Italian temper, many years, to always, when he'd lose the head, somebody, they come up rushing up the church. When I was there, when the doors opened, it was like the greyhound traps. They came in like up the church with his back to get the front seat, you know. Yeah. Padre also now is to do with Our Lady. He said, love the Madonna and pray the Rosary. The Rosary is the weapon against the evils of today. Padre said, the Rosary is the weapon of a weapon against the evils of the world today. The safest place today is on your knees, praying. My experience with Padre of many years, I witnessed many miracles. Now he's been around me. I'll just give you an example of the perfume of Padre. I've experienced that, but I knew there was something in the message. It happened many years ago when I was in Rahim. And it was at 10 o'clock at night, and there was Brother Bosco there and Father John Scott. And it was the month of January. I think it was the month of January. And that me serves me right. I got a strong perfume in the kitchen of roses. I knew instinctively he's saying something. I went to Bosco. I said, do you smell the roses? I do, he said. And then I went around to look at the statue over facing the stove, because there was a cook in the kitchen. And there's no flowers. So I said, Father Jarvis, do you smell roses? What are you saying? He said. Right. What are you talking about? A week later, at 10 o'clock at night, the message came that my brother was killed on the road. He was in the Irish Army in Drumkeen in County Limerick. I knew then that was Padre. Padre was with me. And I went and did everything for the funeral, for everything. Padre has appeared to people. They've seen him. One lady in Cork, she was very, and there was a Capuchin chaplain there, and she said that she saw this new friar on duty at the foot of the bed. The nurses, no friar. He's under, it's the same friar. It's not, it's a different friar. They showed him the picture of Padre. She said, that's him. She said, he's not, that's Padre Pio. So the experiences that have happened with souls down the years, it's for Padre, the salvation of souls. And what we don't know is the suffering. There are two martyrdoms. One is external and the other one is internal. External, you get your head chopped off. Internal, it can last the martyrdom for years. And with Padre, the internal suffering and martyrdom went on until his death. That time and experience with the friars there in the San Giovanni, they're all dead and gone. I think there's one maybe he's around 100 years of age. What I noticed there with the friars is the old way before Vatican II, before Vatican II. Padre, this just puzzled me. This really was one that hit me. He'd come into the dining room and they'd be standing at the table. Now what's clever, I used to do this for breakfast, lunch and evening meal in the friary. Before Vatican II, all the friars. Now, do you notice anything? Imagine if I had the stigmata, the hands, the wounds of my hands, and my feet, and sight, and to have to come in. If you look at the age he came in at, he wasn't young, because he was on in years, and he had to come in, watch him, and he had to go down. And I was sorry, I said, why should that poor friar have to do that? I said to Peter, what was the reason? He said it wasn't mine, but it in fact came from the higher authority. Now, isn't that's not easy. Would you do that if you had the wounds? Would you be able to kneel down? Huh? No. Oh, see. So that's the thing, you see, that's his suffering, the poor man. Padre was really a suffering, poor soul. He had great love for God and for Our Lady. And the last words I'll say to you now, and then I'll sing the hymn, I want to say to you. Because Padre always would do this as well. The only reason we look down on anyone, the only reason we look down on anyone is to lift them up. The only reason we look down on anyone is to lift them up. Jesus lifted the dead. He lifted the leper. He lifted the sick. To lift them up. The only reason we look down on anyone is to lift them up. Padre Pio, we love you. Padre Pio, we salute you. Padre Pio, we bless you. Padre Pio, hallelujah. Kneeling there in San Giovanni, united with his Lord in prayer, and through all his pain and suffering, love of mankind was all he cared. Padre Pio, we love you. Padre Pio, we salute you. Padre Pio, we bless you. Padre Pio, hallelujah. Finally, I just want to say, those who are here from Derry or Buncrana or all of the north, I'm based in Ard in Donegal, and I am now lifting up Padre in Donegal to bring the whole north together to the family, and we will go in procession with the statue of Padre Pio in Ards. And lastly, I would like to thank Father Brian Shortall here. Brian himself down the years, he's one super priest. He's one first class. He definitely is the right man for Padre Pio. Thank you, Brian. So remember, Padre's love is for the family. The attack today is on the family. It's the heart of love. When you have a dysfunctional family, you have a dysfunctional society. I dealt with them in Dublin inner city. I can know, I've been there. And I've travelled the world. I left home at 12, never to return. I went to boarding college, and from there I went to England, and I travelled the whole world. But Our Lady, I saw my father and mother saying the rosary in the ash corner in the hills of Tipperary. And what you see you become, and what you become you act out. I never forgot that. So when my mother died, I went to Our Lady and I said, Mother, Mamma Mia, you be my mother until we meet in heaven. God bless you all.